You are a man. Shut the fuck up.
Nigga, do you got something you want to say?
Don't worry about me, I'm a god.
Oh man. You all. I can't stop giggling. Like, do you know when something is just so bad that your brain can't even process what's going on? It's 5 a.m. when I'm completing this, so I'm genuinely in tears over what I just watched. Anyways, let us begin the review. Concept. She's getting a solid 5 from me, girl. It could have been so much better. If any OG Nini the creative director bingers recall, this was a concept that I had originally given to Cherry Bullet in my Saving Cherry Bullet video. So when NMixx first dropped their trailers and spoiler posters concerning this comeback, I was actually intrigued. But of course, with all things NMixx, you will never leave as happy as you go in. The concept feels all over the place. It's a board game concept executed visually with trippy visuals, inspired by Alice in Wonderland. I also seen slide crumbs here and there that led to a very distinct 19 to 20s vintage feel. As I describe the concept to you, it feels as if this is a no-brainer and should be easily pulled off. What you're forgetting is that NMixx is official, and may I add, quite terrible, concept is mixed pop, and that also applies to visual work as well. If the concept stuck to its vintage roots, it could have at the very least made a case for itself, that case being competency from their team. Instead, we get this weird execution with contemporary design techniques that don't belong in a concept that's not only meant to be vintage but also trippy. It fails on its initial concept, at least visually, miserably. Concept pictures. Which brings me to the concept photos. We started off so strong with the rules of play posters. I was quite satisfied, especially with each poster being named as character posters and each girl having a position related to the game at hand. Very clever. I've seen better photography, especially coloring. I mean, this feels a bit too on the side of VSCO for me personally, but it was leagues better than their debut photos. A small, yet meaningless improvement. My gripe is more so that these concept photos should have been designed as actual character posters rather than merely saying they are in the caption. There's a lack of creativity or enthusiasm to showcase the roles of the girls other than just spelling it out to the audience, with no actual proof other than in the concept video. A situation where more could have been done and therefore that hinders the viewing experience for me. I found Guinea's teaser of this set to be the only appealing one. The angle is great, it feels very interactive rather than static, and the glow captured this very soft yet extravagant look that the concept video was trying to get across. The rest, while not atrocious, are boring for what the concept is trying to convey. Then we move on to the second set, which is technically the first concept photos, but I'd like to just count all of them together so we're not all confused on technicalities. NMixx has one of the most terrible concept organizing I've ever seen, so trust me, I'm sparing you a headache by just doing simple numbering. This set is where the Alice in Wonderland inspiration finally takes its form, for better or for worse. I'm still not sure how I feel about this set. Some girls deliver, while others don't. Soleun, Bay and Kijin's concept teasers are the only ones who have enough fun for what it's worth. Their posing allows the viewer equal intake of both them and the colorful, quirky worlds behind them. Whereas their other group members might as well be in another generic summer comeback set that every company builds, missing the oddball details that make the world stand out. Even then, this concept batch is suffering from the same issue as the character introductions. Why don't the girls interact with the set they're literally in? This is a concept that revolves around a trippy world. The girls should not look unimpressed by the things around them. They seem to not even be aware of where they are. How do you make aespa's debut teasers somehow, some way look more realistic and world immersive than you? What's made even more confusing though is that this batch of photos is also loaded with another set, one that has its issues as well. Now, if you're familiar with my work, you would know that I'm a big lover of color. The brighter and more intense, the more I smile. It's a key factor in my work. So I can't say I dislike these bears. It reminds me of the revival of the 80s a few years back with color blocking coming in strong as a fashion trend and therefore, design trend. I think the issue is that pairing these two set of concept photos together makes the latter look quite cheap. Pairing two set designs, meant to convey two different worlds, can often fail one if the execution is vastly different, and that's the case with these. Seeing them back to back does not do justice for the second. Overall, another batch of concept photos that had potential, but several decisions left me feeling torn about it. From here on out, things take a straight nosedive. Forget a concept altogether, now we're just taking stock photos and poorly editing words onto them. This is where this fake group feel really enhanced for me all over again. I can't believe this was something officially released, let alone by a huge company such as JYP. Even with my disappointment with Itsy and Twice's art direction at times, I could confidently say that they have never gotten this bad. There are no redeeming factors to this set. The lighting is extremely dull, very generic, and cleaned up in a way that directly misses the entire point of the visual setup from the first two teasers. The words are edited so amateurly on their skin, I have no idea why they would go this route. Back during their debut, Itsy had something similar like this but executed properly. I'll show. NMixx's attempt is so genuinely bad, I mean just the idea alone of putting stark white text on pale skin with straightforward lighting makes me believe there's 6 monkeys and a light bulb with an Adobe subscription at headquarters. What was going through their mind? They manages to escape the fate her group members shared. Her up-close shot was the best of the bunch, managing to properly capture the emotions on her face while having the contrast of the projector text behind her. I have no idea why they went through with this concept, let alone why they executed it like this. It's laughably awful and confirms to me what everyone has been saying. These girls are 100% on Nuku promoter in another universe without a doubt. The last set finally introduces some actual fucking design, and because they hate me, of course it's terrible. Listen, I love when designers experiment with unique silhouettes, and I'm beginning to implement some more freeform vectors and silhouettes into my work for the feature as well. However, I cannot emphasize enough how much I hate the way this frame is. Like, I just cannot get behind it, the presentation is just so sloppy. You're working with photographs with dark backgrounds. If your goal was to create a unique shape in order to have it as a frame, then why would you also do a black background? The black on already dark colors makes the design almost invisible and therefore, pointless. It doesn't add anything to the picture because the design itself is painfully blending in. Not to mention, in each photo there's a shadow of a hand, which only worsens the visibility of the design technique being used here. The posing is once again, bland and uninspiring for the concept at hand. We're supposed to be thrown into this colorful, quirky yet underlining terrifying world, yet the girls radiate a quiet boredom in expressions and disinterest in body language. They don't interact with the world around them, they are simply empty vessels staring at us as we stare at them back. The design elements and photography trick that would have been doing the heavy work carrying the concept beyond the girls posing is, once again, practically invisible, and therefore leaves this photo set feeling quite unremarkable. In the end, despite having a concept that was practically handed to them on a platter to be contenders for best art direction this year, NMixx once again fails miserably in execution. I shouldn't be shocked as it's JYP, but as I stated before, not even Twice had dropped the ball as much as I feel NMixx had. I also want to point out that as far as styling goes, there were only a few standout pieces to really showcase the true potential of the concept. I tried to see if there were any fashion accounts in which I could retrieve the exact name of these pieces, but came up empty on Instagram, so please humbly just settle for me naming them a bit in a childlike manner. Sully Eun's orange dress with holographic detailing complete with blood red vinyl boots. Easily the best attempt at the vintage modern cross in which the team were trying to convey. Coming in second from the rules of play would be Jenny, as her attire manages to make the cut with me, even if it leans a bit more modern than vintage. I think the ruffled top with that puffed, Disney princess shoulder look was enough to not have a beat carried away. Lily's look was a grower for me, but I grouped her in with these two. I enjoyed the color blocking and vinyl leather featured in the styling for the second concept, although Jawoo's look left me extremely underwhelmed, which is fitting I guess, as her concept pictures did as well. Past this, everything else is generic and feels like a repeat of the 4th-gen girl group trends that have been recycling for the past 2 years now. The true standout piece from the era would have to be Kyujin's white outfit shown in the dance sequence. The rough, often called a millstone collar, is a perfect way to reference the era's vintage origins, albeit a confusing mixture, but could be acceptable from a creative standpoint, while still keeping it grounded in the concept. Her whole look had this clown feel to it, with the black and white striped trippy visuals adding to this feeling. I just adore her look, and I feel like it's the only outfit in which the stylist understood the concept. It's very fitting. I'm no fashion major, but styling does play a large part in creative direction and could make or break a vision. In this case, there were an even mix of hits and misses. I can't see it making any waves in their generation in terms of a new trend, which is sad. I consider the styling of their debut to have way more heart in it. The sporty chic look complementing their mix pop concept was genuinely one of the more positive remarks I had concerning their abysmal debut. Now, they look like any other group. Typography and other promotional material. The logo was fine. I won't pretend to be blown away by it because, just speaking personally, this liquid death type style is not up my alley. Props on the team though, especially with the technique of mixing typefaces. Very experimental, representing the title track and of course the group. It's definitely not the first we've seen though, as SM was slightly ahead of the curve, rolling out their own metal hard inspire logo work from aespa's Logofilio to just recently, Hyo's Deep. I do have to be honest that I believe Hyo's Deep does a much better job at execution, even if nmixx's is more coherent. The dice logo is certainly the better type moment from the era. I enjoy the unconventional nature of it. Such a simple idea, but the execution made it enjoyable for the eyes as well as legible in a way that the album's logo was not. I liked it, it was neat. This era first began with a series of graphics detailing questions from the adventure game to establish the concept. The illustrations feature a vintage art style, very reminiscent of old cartoon drawings from the 30s. This art style is very popular in K-pop, from Red Velvet to Oh My Girl having various works featured in it. As far as the concept goes, this was a neat idea to introduce the album's concept in a way others who have done a concept similar, have not. With that being said, Oh My Girl's non-stop still beats them out by a long shot. You can't just have an album concept revolving around a board game and not go all out incorporating that. I like the pop-up idea, but other than, the board game theme gets lost afterwards. The lyric poster tries what it can, but the design is just very average. I was also surprised that the album didn't come with dice, as it was such a huge deal not only in the title track name but also being featured several times throughout the album cycle. Then again, that's the issue with single albums. It's a single album and therefore it's only going to receive so much in terms of care and effort, not to mention a single album from a company who has a track record of missing the mark when it comes to album concepts with execution in general. The music video was shockingly bad, which genuinely shocked me. I thought with the concept at hand, it was a given that the music video would be a walk in the park and the music would be where they would struggle. To my dismay, it was the complete opposite. To editing on the music video is so jarring, like there are these very weird cuts that aren't really on beat to the music nor do they make sense to happen, they just do. The visual effects were nonsensical the same way their debut was to me as well. Like it's a $5 man's Alice in Wonderland meets badly CGI Peter Pan and they're still trying to keep their Little Mermaid wig on by the end, like what's happening here exactly? Overall I'm underwhelmed. I was already skeptical about this being a step up from their otherwise stolen debut, but it seems like they have barely made a step forward. Of course anything could be better than plagiarism, but it almost feels like this project suffers from the same fate as its predecessor. There's an interesting concept that doesn't feel expanded on enough in certain areas, and any potential it had was squandered by their team, who seems to be struggling just as much as the public to make sense of a concept that revolves around mixing. I'm sadly not impressed by the end despite my interest being piqued by the beginning. It's interesting that every group I wrote about in my What's a Concept? The video has practically come back, and I am wondering if I should still release that video. I wrote it when all the rookies had debuted, minus of course me jeans. Maybe we could use it as reference still. Let me know. Anyways, thank you for watching.
Who fuck is this? You're a snake. Funny morals from hate.
It's over. That's it. Okay? That's all I gotta say.